This is a video about how to do environmental control on the Opera Phenix Plus, for example, for a time course on live cells, mammalian or bacteria. You would go to Harmony software, and after logging in to your lab, but before beginning your experiment, click on Settings. That opens this menu, and go to Environmental Control. There are three things you can change. You can turn the CO2 on. You can adjust what percent CO2, anywhere from 1% to 10%. 5% is normal for mammalian cells, and it's usually off for bacteria. You can turn the temperature on. This can be controlled anywhere from 37 to 42 degrees Celsius. 37 is quite popular for live cells, although do note that we do experience evaporation in a multi-well plate, especially if it's a 384 well plate, or even worse, a 1536 well plate, or if you have a 96 well plate that you've not added a whole lot of media to. Some things that help include having your outer wells of your plate along the edges be loaded with water or media or some other liquid that you're not actually going to be imaging, but helps humidify the plate, and the edges that get the worst evaporation with the edge effects, those will not be in your analysis. And then also you can turn on the humidity chamber or humidification of the chamber that will prevent some of that evaporation. After you've turned these on, you can then go and if you're doing the humidity, you will want to look in here to make sure that there is some water on the sponge. The sponge soaks the water up to pull it into the chamber with the sample. If the water is looking low, you can unscrew this and there we go. You just pull the bottle off of the sponge, go fill it with milli-Q water. There's a fill line here. You can actually go a little bit over it, and that'll be fine. Come back and screw it back on, and do use gloves so that you don't touch the sponge with your bare hand, because we want to try and keep it as sterile as possible. Only use milli-Q water. That's true for this and the immersion liquid of the water objectives. So that's for if you're doing the humidity chamber. If you are doing CO2, then you need to open the tank. The tank that you want to use is the one with the silver line, not the one with the clear tube. That goes to our incubators. The one you want is here on the left. It has the silver tube. It says here that it's for the Phenix internal chamber. That's the environmental chamber. All you need to do is open this main wheel here counterclockwise. You'll notice a few things. There was a little sound. This gauge shows how much CO2 is remaining in the tank. And we can kind of keep track of that to make sure it's not emptying too quickly, which would indicate a leak. Or if it is starting to get empty, we may need to replace the tank with a new one, and I usually keep a new one available here. And also, you'll notice on this gauge, which is indicating the internal pressure of the line that's being delivered, it's about 10 to 15 psi, and that is what's desired. It's very much at the lower limit of this gauge on our regulator, but it works, and so you don't need to change that. That's controlled with this knob here, but do not touch it. All you need to do is open this one. When you are done with your experiment, please remember to close it. That is your responsibility as the one who opened it. Also, if you are finished with your experiment, you will want to come in here and turn the CO2 temperature, humidity, whatever you used, you want to turn them off again. This is very important because whoever is using the microscope after you may need ambient conditions, and so we want it to have time to go back to normal. It does take some time to flush. Sometimes it actually takes half an hour to flush it with fresh air. So you definitely want to do that in advance of the next person showing up. And likewise, when you start, you might want to include some time for it to equilibrate before starting your imaging. All of that extra time is on you to book the Phenix on the Faces calendar with enough buffer so that you'll be able to get your environmental control up and off. It is very important that the temperature be back to room temperature. For most assays, like if you're doing immunofluorescence microscopy, you will find that the imaging is not going to look as good if it's warm than if it's at room temperature. The fluorophores just do not fluoresce as well. There's more background. It does not look great if it's at 37 degrees. So even though the sample is fixed and theoretically the cells are fine, they don't care if there's any of this on or off, the fluorophores actually are temperature sensitive. And so if you come to the microscope and you're not using the environmental control, it is always useful to just make sure that the things are off. If you turn them on, then there will be a series of icons that show. First, it will show an arrow like this showing that it's busy getting to temperature, and then it will show a green check mark once it has reached the desired temperature. If you try and start imaging while it looks like this, it will offer a warning to say it's not quite at the desired temperature yet, and you can just ignore that warning. So it will allow you to start imaging if it's not yet at the set point. Setting the environmental control is not included in your actual protocol. This is just reporting on the current conditions. So you do always have to remember to go in and do it every time you do your experiment. And so hopefully that's everything you need to know in order to get your environmental control set up for the Phenix.